The stars looked different out here, Captain Jake Martinez thought as he sipped his coffee and watched the view from the bridge of the Pioneer's Edge. 3 months into their deep space exploration mission, his crew of 12 had mapped 17 new star systems and discovered 2 planets that might support life someday. It was good work, the kind that made Jake proud to wear the Earth Space Service uniform. "Captain," called Maria Santos from the navigation station, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the ship. "We've got something big on long-range sensors. Really big." Jake set down his coffee mug and walked over to look at her screen. The readings showed a massive vessel, easily 10 times the size of their small exploration ship. It had appeared out of nowhere, which meant it had some kind of advanced jump drive technology that Earth hadn't developed yet. "Any communication signals?" Jake asked. Tony Kim looked up from his communications console. "Getting something now, sir. It's..." "Wow, they're speaking English. How do they know English?" Before Jake could answer, a deep, harsh voice filled the bridge. The translator systems must be working, Jake realized. "Primitive vessel. This is Commander Zethkar of the Draxan Empire. You have entered restricted space. Prepare to be boarded for processing." Jake exchanged glances with his crew. Ben Clark, their chief engineer, just shrugged. Helen Turner, their medic, looked curious rather than worried. Dr. Lisa Wang didn't even look up from her xenobiology research. None of them seemed particularly concerned about being threatened by aliens, which made Jake smile a little. "This is Captain Jake Martinez of the Earth vessel Pioneer's Edge," he replied into the comm system. "Nice to meet you, Commander. We're explorers from Earth, and we didn't know this space was restricted. We'd be happy to talk about it." There was a long pause. When the alien voice came back, it sounded confused. "Talk? You will surrender your vessel immediately. Resistance will result in destruction." "Well, that doesn't sound very friendly," Jake said, still keeping his voice calm and polite. "How about we meet halfway? We could dock our ships and have a conversation. Maybe share some coffee." Another pause, this one even longer. Jake could hear what sounded like multiple alien voices arguing in the background. Finally, Commander Zethkar spoke again, and now he sounded frustrated. "Human Captain, you do not understand. The Draxan Empire does not negotiate with primitive species. You will surrender, or we will take your ship by force." Jake scratched his chin thoughtfully. Ryan Odell, their mechanic, looked over from where he was checking the ship's systems. "Want me to prep the defensive systems, Captain?" "Not yet," Jake said. "Let's see what these folks really want." He turned back to the comm. "Commander, with respect, I don't think we're going to surrender. We haven't done anything wrong, and we're peaceful explorers. If you want to take our ship, you're welcome to try, but it seems like a waste of energy for both of us." The silence that followed was so long that Tony Kim checked to make sure the communication link was still working. When Zethkar finally spoke, his voice had changed. There was something in it that Jake couldn't quite identify. Uncertainty, maybe. "You dare refuse the Draxan Empire? What manner of warriors are you?" Jake looked around at his crew again. Maria was plotting their position on the star charts. Ben was running diagnostics on the engines. Lisa was still reading about alien plant samples. Helen was organizing her medical supplies. None of them looked like warriors because they weren't. "We're not warriors, Commander," Jake said honestly. "We're scientists and engineers, explorers, but we'll defend ourselves if we need to." "Scientists?" The alien voice rose higher. "Where are your warriors? Where is your military escort?" "We don't have one," Jake replied. "We don't need one for exploration missions. Though I should mention that most of us served in the military at some point. It's pretty common for humans. Jake heard more arguing in the background and what sounded like several different alien voices talking at once. It was getting pretty loud over there. Impossible, Zethkar finally said. No species sends their knowledge seekers into space without warrior protection. You lie. I'm not lying, Jake said patiently. Look, why don't you come aboard our ship? We can show you around, and you can see for yourself what kind of people we are. We've got some really good coffee, and Dr. Wang has been studying some fascinating alien plant samples that might interest you. Lisa finally looked up from her work. Oh, are we meeting aliens? That's exciting. I have so many questions about their biology and culture. The communication channel went dead quiet. Jake waited, counting slowly in his head. At 30 seconds, he was about to call out again when Zethkar's voice returned, but now it sounded strained. You offer to let enemy warriors aboard your vessel while you are outnumbered and outgunned? You're not our enemies, Jake said reasonably. We just met you, and you haven't actually attacked us yet, so I'm hoping we can work this out like civilized people. Or civilized beings, I guess. This is madness, Zethkar muttered, and Jake wasn't sure if the alien was talking to him or to his own crew. Ben Clark looked over from his engineering station. Captain, I'm reading some interesting energy signatures from their ship. Their technology is definitely more advanced than ours, but it's not that much more advanced, and they're running their weapon systems pretty hot. Seems inefficient. Thanks, Ben, Jake said. Then into the comm. Commander, our engineer notices you're running your weapon systems at high power. That must be using a lot of energy. Are you planning to shoot at us, or can we power down and have a normal conversation? The response came quickly this time, and Zethkar sounded almost panicked. How did you detect our weapon status? What kind of sensors do you have? Just basic engineering sensors, Ben called out cheerfully. Pretty standard stuff. Your ship's putting out a lot of heat signatures. Jake heard what sounded like an alien having a breakdown over the communication channel. There were definitely multiple voices now, all talking urgently in what he assumed was the Draxan language. Commander, Jake said, you still there? Are you okay? When Zethkar spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled like someone trying. Very hard to stay calm. Human Captain, I am coming aboard your vessel with a full escort of warriors. If this is some kind of trap... It's not a trap, Jake assured him. We'll have the docking bay ready for you. Fair warning, though, the coffee's pretty strong. Some people find it intense. The last thing Jake heard before the communication ended was what sounded suspiciously like alien cursing. Commander Zethkar stood in the docking bay of the human ship, trying to understand what he was seeing. The bay was clean and organized, but it was also smaller than his personal quarters. The human ship itself was tiny compared to Draxan vessels, barely large enough to hold the dozen crew members the captain had mentioned. Behind him, his 4 warrior escorts shifted nervously. They were all 7 feet tall, covered in natural armor scales, and armed with plasma weapons. They should have been intimidating. Instead, they looked confused and uncomfortable. Captain Martinez appeared through a doorway, and Zethkar had to resist the urge to step back. Not because the human looked dangerous, quite the opposite. He looked completely relaxed and friendly, like someone greeting invited guests rather than enemy boarders. He was average height for a human, with brown hair and eyes, wearing a simple blue uniform. Nothing about him suggested warrior training. "Welcome aboard, Commander," Jake said with a smile. "Thanks for coming over." I'm Jake Martinez. This is our ship. Zethkar studied the human captain carefully. In all his years of military service, he had never met an enemy commander who seemed genuinely happy to see him. It was deeply unsettling. "Captain Martinez," Zethkar said formally. "I am Commander Zethkar of the Draxon 3rd Battle Fleet. These are my warriors." He gestured to his escorts, who were looking around the docking bay with obvious confusion. "Nice to meet you all," Jake said, nodding to each of the Draxon warriors like he was meeting neighbors at a barbecue. "Would you like a tour of the ship? It's not very big, but we're pretty proud of it." One of Zethkar's warriors, a veteran named Krell-Thar, leaned close and whispered in the Draxon language, "Commander, this is wrong. Where are their defenses? Where are their weapons? This feels like a trap." Zethkar had been thinking the same thing. In his experience, only two types of beings acted this casually when facing superior firepower: complete fools or extremely dangerous predators. Given that humans had somehow detected Draxon weapon systems with basic sensors, he was starting to suspect the latter. "Captain Martinez," Zethkar said slowly, "I find your behavior unusual. You show no fear, though my ship could destroy yours easily. You invite enemy warriors aboard with no apparent security measures. Either you are foolish or you are supremely confident in your abilities." Jake looked genuinely puzzled. "Enemy warriors? I thought we were just talking. Are we at war? Because, if we are, nobody told me about it." The casual way the human said this made Zethkar's scales itch with worry. Was this human so confident that he considered a Draxon battle fleet to be no threat at all? "We are not at war," Zethkar admitted. "Yet. But you have refused lawful orders from the Draxon Empire. This is typically resolved through combat." "Oh," Jake said, looking disappointed. "That seems like a waste. Can't we just talk it out?" Before Zethkar could answer, more humans began arriving in the docking bay. Each one looked completely normal and non-threatening, which somehow made them more worrying. A woman with dark hair walked up and looked at the Draxon warriors with obvious scientific interest. "These are the aliens?" she asked Jake. "Fascinating. Look at that scale structure. And those claws, definitely evolved from a predator species. Commander, what's your homeworld's gravity like?" Zethkar stared at her. She was studying his warriors like they were interesting specimens rather than deadly enemies. "You are not afraid?" "Afraid? Why would I be afraid?" The woman extended her hand. "I'm Dr. Lisa Wang, xenobiologist. I study alien life forms. This is incredibly exciting for me." Krell-Thar whispered urgently to Zethkar again. "Commander, she acts like we are animals in a zoo. This is either madness or the confidence of a supreme predator." Zethkar was beginning to think his champion was right. He decided to test these humans directly. "Captain Martinez," he said formally, "according to galactic law, disputes between species can be resolved through single combat between champions. I challenge you to name a warrior to face my champion in honorable battle. The winner decides the fate of both crews." Jake looked around at his crew, who had all gathered to watch the meeting. "Single combat? That seems a bit old-fashioned, but—" "Okay. Lisa, you're up." Dr. Wang looked pleased. "Really? I haven't sparred in weeks. This should be fun." Zethkar felt his jaw drop open. The human captain had just chosen a female knowledge seeker to face Krell-Thar, who had won over 100 single combats. Either humans had no concept of warrior hierarchy, or this Dr. Wang was far more dangerous than she appeared. "Captain," Zethkar said carefully, "perhaps you misunderstand. This is mortal combat between our strongest warriors. Your scientist would face Krelthar, veteran of countless battles. Oh, I understand, Jake said cheerfully. Lisa's our best hand-to-hand fighter. She teaches self-defense classes. Back on Earth, too. Don't let the lab coat fool you. She's tough. Dr. Wang was already removing her lab coat, revealing a simple black shirt and pants underneath. She looked completely ordinary, like someone who spent her time looking through microscopes rather than fighting alien warriors. "What are the rules?" she asked casually. "Any weapons allowed, or just hand-to-hand? Are there any moves that are considered dishonorable?" Krelthar stepped forward, towering over the small human woman. His scales were scarred from dozens of battles, and his claws gleamed in the docking bay lights. "Human female, I do not wish to harm a non-warrior. Yield now and ask your captain to send a proper fighter." Lisa looked up at him with interest rather than fear. "Non-warrior? That's an interesting assumption. What makes someone a warrior in your culture? Is it size, experience, training, or is it just willingness to fight when necessary?" The question seemed to confuse Krelthar. In Draxan society, warriors were born into the warrior caste. The idea that a knowledge seeker could also be a fighter was almost incomprehensible. "You study alien plants," Krelthar said, as if this explained everything. "You seek knowledge. You are not bred for combat." "That's true, I do study plants," Lisa agreed. "But I also learned to defend myself. Most humans do. It's pretty basic stuff." She stretched casually, rolling her shoulders and doing a few simple exercises. To Zethkar's trained eye, her movements looked efficient and controlled, but nothing that suggested advanced combat training. "Commander," Krelthar said in Draxan, "this feels wrong. She shows no fear, no combat readiness. Either she is completely unprepared for battle, or she is hiding abilities we cannot detect." Zethkar was wondering the same thing. In his experience, beings who showed no fear when facing superior opponents were usually extremely dangerous. But this human woman looked like she was getting ready for a casual exercise session, not a fight to the death. "The combat will take place on my ship," Zethkar decided. "In our arena, according to Draxan tradition." "Are you certain you wish to proceed, Dr. Wang?" Lisa smiled brightly. "Absolutely. This is a great opportunity to observe alien combat techniques. Do you mind if I ask questions during the fight? I'm really curious about how your muscle structure works." The request was so unexpected that Zethkar almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of being asked scientific questions while preparing for mortal combat? "We will see," he said quietly, and wondered what his warriors were about to face. The Draxan arena was built for intimidation. The walls were decorated with weapons from 100 conquered worlds, and the floor was stained with the blood of countless defeated warriors. Viewing platforms surrounded the fighting circle where Draxan officers had gathered to watch what they expected to be a very short execution. Dr. Lisa Wang stood in the center of the arena, looking around with obvious scientific interest. She was still wearing her simple black clothes, and she had tied her hair back in a practical ponytail. Next to her, Krelthar looked like a living statue of war. 7 feet of scarred scales, muscle, and natural armor. Fascinating architecture, Lisa said, turning to study the weapon displays. Very intimidating. The psychological impact must be significant for most species. "Krelthar, how long have your people been using ritual combat for dispute resolution?" Krelthar stared down at her. In over 2 decades of fighting, no opponent had ever asked him about Draxan cultural history while standing in the combat circle. Human, he said slowly, do you understand what is about to happen? This is not a scholarly debate. This is combat to the death. Oh, I understand, Lisa said cheerfully, though I'm hoping we can avoid the death part. I'd much rather study your species alive than perform an autopsy. No offense. From the viewing platform, Commander Zethkar watched the exchange with growing unease. The human woman was either completely insane or absolutely confident in her abilities. Neither possibility was reassuring. "Begin!" Zethkar called out, and immediately regretted it. Krelthar had expected the human to show fear, or anger, or at least some kind of combat readiness. Instead, Dr. Wang simply stood there, watching him with the same scientific interest she might show when observing a new type of bacteria. "Interesting stance," she said as he approached. "Very aggressive forward posture. Is that instinctive for your species or learned behavior?" Confused by her casual attitude, Krelthar charged forward with a straightforward attack. His claws swept toward the human's head in a move that had ended dozens of fights instantly. Lisa stepped to the side so smoothly that she seemed to simply disappear from Krelthar's vision. The Draxan warrior's momentum carried him forward, and he felt something grab his extended arm. Suddenly the world spun around him, and he crashed into the arena wall with enough force to crack the stone. The watching Draxan officers fell completely silent. Krelthar picked himself up, shaking, his head to clear it. What had just happened? The human had barely seemed to move, yet somehow his own attack had been turned against him. "Sorry about that," Lisa called out. "I used your momentum against you. It's basic physics, really. Your mass times your velocity created quite a lot of force when properly redirected." She was talking about the fight like it was a science experiment. Krelthar had never experienced anything like it. He approached more carefully this time, using the defensive techniques that had kept him alive through 100 battles. But every attack he made seemed to work against him. When he struck high, the human ducked low and somehow his legs got tangled. When he tried to grab her, she slipped away and he found himself falling. When he used his natural weapons, she avoided them easily and used his own movements to throw him around the arena. "Your reaction time is actually quite good," Lisa said, conversationally as Krelthar picked himself up from the floor for the 4th time. "But you're fighting with raw strength and aggression. Against an opponent who knows leverage and anatomy, that's not very effective." Krelthar was breathing heavily now, which shocked him. He was a veteran warrior in peak physical condition. How was this small human making him work so hard? "What kind of training did you receive?" he demanded. "Training?" Lisa looked thoughtful. "I took a self-defense class at the community center back home, 2 nights a week for about 6 months. Then I practiced with some friends. It's not really formal training, just basic stuff that anyone can learn." The Draxan officers in the viewing area began talking urgently among themselves. Basic training? Community center? What was a community center? Krelthar charged again, this time trying to use his size and weight to simply overwhelm the human. Lisa watched him approach with calm interest, like she was observing a predictable chemical reaction. At the last second, she stepped aside and placed one hand on his back as he passed. The small push was perfectly timed and positioned. Krelthar found himself unable to stop or turn, and he crashed into the far wall of the arena with even more force than before. This time, he stayed down for several seconds. "That's interesting," Lisa said, walking over to check on him. "Your species seems to have excellent natural armor, but your joints work basically the same way as human joints. The principles of leverage still apply." Krelthar struggled to his feet. But something was wrong. His left arm wasn't working properly. The small human had somehow damaged his shoulder without using any visible force. "How?" he asked weakly. "Pressure point," Lisa explained helpfully. "When you fell, I applied pressure to a specific nerve cluster. It should wear off in a few minutes. I learned that technique from my instructor, Mrs. Patterson. She was 73 years old and taught us that size doesn't matter if you understand anatomy." The arena had gone completely quiet. Every Draxan present was staring at the small, human woman who had just defeated their champion using what she called basic techniques, learned from an elderly instructor at a community center. "I yield," Krelthar said quietly. "Are you sure?" Lisa asked. "We could continue if you want. I have more questions about your muscle structure." "I am sure," Krelthar said firmly. He looked up at Commander Zethkar. "She is the victor." Zethkar stared down at the scene below. His greatest warrior, veteran of countless battles, had been defeated by a human female who studied plants for a living, and she had done it using techniques she described as basic knowledge that anyone could learn. "Dr. Wong," he called down to the arena, "what you have demonstrated, this is advanced combat training among your species?" Lisa looked up at him with surprise. "Advanced? Oh no, this is pretty basic stuff. Most humans learn some kind of self-defense. It's just practical, you know? The world can be dangerous." She helped Krelthar to his feet with obvious concern for his injuries. "I'm sorry if I hurt you. I was trying to be gentle. Are you okay?" Krelthar looked at her with something approaching awe. "You were being gentle?" "Well, yes," Lisa said. "This was just a demonstration, right? I didn't want to actually hurt anyone. That would be terrible for diplomatic relations." Commander Zethkar felt something cold settle in his stomach. The human had defeated his champion while holding back. She had been gentle. "Dr. Wong," he said carefully, "what would happen if you were not being gentle?" Lisa looked thoughtful. "Well, I suppose someone could get seriously injured. But that would only happen in a real emergency. Most humans try to avoid violence when possible." She paused, then added, "Though I should mention that I'm not even the best fighter on our ship. Ben has military training, and Tony knows some really impressive martial arts. And Jake, well, Jake's just tough. Most ship captains are." Zethkar closed his eyes and tried to process what he was hearing. The human who had just destroyed his champion was not even their best fighter. She was a scientist who had learned basic self-defense as a hobby. What kind of species was he dealing with? The Draxan Command Center had never been so quiet. Commander Zethkar stood before his assembled officers, trying to find words to explain what they had all witnessed. His greatest warrior, Krelthar, sat nearby with his arm in a medical support device, looking like someone who had seen his entire worldview collapse. "Explain this to me again," said Sub-Commander Vextal, Zethkar's second-in-command. "The human female learned these combat techniques at a community center?" Captain Martinez nodded helpfully. He and his crew had been invited to the Draxan, ship for what the aliens called a cultural exchange, though it felt more like an interrogation to Jake. Dr. Wang sat beside him, still looking cheerful and curious about everything around her. "That's right," Jake said. "Community centers offer all kinds of classes for local residents: self-defense, cooking, art, computer skills, exercise classes. It's pretty normal." "Normal?" Zethkar repeated the word like it was a foreign concept. "Your species considers combat training to be normal recreational activity?" "Well, basic self-defense anyway," Lisa said. It's just practical. You never know when you might need it. Though I have to say, most of the time we use those skills for confidence building rather than actual fighting. Engineer Ben Clark looked up from where he was examining a Draxon control panel with obvious interest. I learned most of my hand-to-hand, combat in the military. But my daughter Emma takes karate classes at her school. She's 8 and she's already pretty good. The Draxon officers exchanged worried glances. Their children learned to fight as part of their education? Your offspring, said Vextal slowly, are taught combat techniques? Some of them, Jake said. Depends on what they're interested in. Emma likes karate. My nephew prefers soccer and swimming. It's about building confidence and staying healthy. Soccer? Asked Krelthar weakly. It's a sport, explained Maria. Santos from her position near the navigation displays. You kick a ball around and try to get it into a goal. Very popular back home. Tony Kim looked up from the alien communication systems he was studying. Though football is more popular in some regions. That's where you carry the ball and try to get it into the end zone while other players try to tackle you. Tackle? Zethkar's voice was getting higher. Knock you down, Tony explained helpfully. It's full contact. Players wear protective gear, but people still get hurt sometimes. It's part of the game. You play games where you deliberately try to injure each other? Vextal asked in horror. Not injure exactly, Jake said. Though injuries do happen, it's considered part of the sport. Players know the risks when they sign up. Ryan Odell looked over from where he was admiring the alien engine displays. You should see hockey. Those guys beat each other up with sticks while sliding around on ice at high speed. It's pretty exciting to watch. The Draxon officers were looking increasingly distressed. Krelthar spoke up weakly. Dr. Wang, when you learned these combat techniques, what was the purpose? What enemy were you preparing to fight? Lisa looked puzzled. Enemy. There wasn't really a specific enemy. The instructor just taught us general self-defense principles. You know, what to do if someone grabs you, how to get away from dangerous situations, that sort of thing. Dangerous situations are common on your world? Asked Zethkar. Well, not really common, Jake said thoughtfully. But they can happen anywhere. Crime, accidents, natural disasters, it's just good to be prepared. Natural disasters? Vextal leaned forward with obvious concern. Maria smiled. Oh, sure. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, fires. You learn to deal with them. I grew up in Florida, so hurricanes were pretty normal. When I was 12, we had one that destroyed half our town. My family lived in an emergency shelter for 2 months while we rebuilt. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Zethkar spoke in a very quiet voice. Your town was destroyed when you were a child? Yeah, Hurricane Andrew, Maria said casually. It was a big one. But we rebuilt everything better than before. That's what you do after disasters. You clean up and start over. How many of these natural disasters have you experienced? Asked Krelthar. Maria thought about it. Let's see. Maybe a dozen hurricanes, a few tornadoes, one pretty serious earthquake when I was visiting California. Oh, and that flood when the dam broke. That was exciting. Exciting? Vextal's voice cracked. Well, scary at the time, Maria admitted. But we all got through it okay. My grandmother always said that difficulties make you stronger. Tony nodded. My grandmother lived through the Korean War. She used to tell stories about finding food in the forest and hiding from enemy soldiers. She taught me which plants you can eat and how to build shelter from nothing. Really useful stuff. Your elders teach survival skills as normal education? Zethkar asked faintly. Some of them. Jake said. A lot of older people have been through tough times. They like to pass on what they learned. It's how humans deal with problems. We share knowledge and help each other. Ben looked up from the control panel he was studying. Speaking of knowledge, this technology is really interesting. Mind if I ask how your power systems work? I'm always curious about different approaches to engineering problems. Vextal stared at him. You are studying our military technology? Just the engineering aspects, Ben said cheerfully. I like to understand how things work. This plasma containment system is really elegant, much more efficient than our fusion reactors. He's not a spy, Jake assured the nervous aliens. Ben just likes mechanical systems. He's been taking apart and rebuilding machines since he was a kid. It's his hobby. Hobby? Krelthar asked. Something you do for fun, Helen Turner explained from where she was examining the alien medical equipment. I collect old medical texts and study historical surgical techniques. Ben likes engines. Lisa studies alien biology. We all have interests outside our regular work. You study medicine in your spare time? Asked Zethkar. Sure, Helen said. You never know when knowledge might be useful. Last year, I helped deliver a baby during a camping trip when the mother went into labor early. The training came in handy. Camping trip? Vextal was looking overwhelmed. Recreational survival in the wilderness, Jake explained. People go out into remote areas with basic supplies and live outdoors for a few days. It's relaxing. Survival is relaxing? Krelthar asked weakly. For humans, apparently, Ryan said, with a grin. Though I prefer working on motorcycles myself. There's something satisfying about rebuilding an engine with your own hands. Motorcycles? Zethkar asked, though he sounded like he was afraid of the answer. Two-wheeled vehicles that go really fast, Ryan explained. No protection except a helmet and maybe some leather clothing. Pretty dangerous, but that's part of the fun. You deliberately engage in dangerous activities for enjoyment? Vextal's voice was getting squeaky. Well, sure, Jake said. Life's short. Might as well make it interesting. The Draxan officers looked at each other with something approaching panic. These humans treated survival training as recreation, taught their children to fight, lived through disasters that would destroy entire Draxan colonies, and considered dangerous activities to be entertainment. Commander, Krelthar said quietly, I believe we may have made a serious error in our assessment of this species. Zethkar nodded slowly. He was beginning to think that challenging the humans had been the worst mistake of his career. And according to Dr. Wang, these were just ordinary examples of human behavior. The cultural exchange had been going on for 3 hours, and Commander Zethkar was beginning to feel like his entire understanding of the universe had been turned upside down. Every casual comment from the humans revealed something that would be legendary among other galactic species. So your planet has multiple climate zones? Sub-Commander Vextal was asking Maria Santos. He was taking careful notes, as if documenting the habits of some incomprehensible alien species. Oh yeah, Maria said, pulling up images on her tablet. We've got tropical regions, deserts, Arctic zones, temperate forests, mountains, swamps. The weather changes constantly. Some places get snow in winter and blazing heat in summer. She showed them a picture of a snow-covered landscape. This is Minnesota in January. Temperature drops to maybe negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. People still live there year-round. Krelthar, who was still recovering from his defeat, looked at the image with confusion. How do they survive such cold? Oh, they adapt, Maria said casually. Better clothing, heated homes, different food. Humans are pretty good at adapting to whatever environment they're in. Tony Kim nodded. My uncle lives in Alaska, even colder than Minnesota. He goes ice fishing in the winter, cuts holes in frozen lakes and catches fish through the ice. Says it's peaceful. He goes outside in deadly cold for recreation? Vextal asked faintly. Sure, Tony said. Humans live everywhere on Earth. Deserts, mountains, Arctic regions, tropical jungles. We just figure out how to make it work. Doctor. Wong looked up from her examination of some Draxan biological samples. It's really quite impressive from an evolutionary standpoint. Most species adapt to one specific environment. Humans adapted to adapt, if that makes sense. We're generalists. Generalists, Zethkar repeated. Your species specializes in not specializing? Exactly, Lisa said brightly. We're not the strongest or fastest or most resistant to any particular environment, but we can learn to survive almost anywhere. Ben Clark was still fascinated by the Draxan technology. Speaking of adapting, how long did it take your people to develop space travel? Approximately 12,000 years from the development of metallurgy, Vextal said proudly. The Draxan Empire has a long and distinguished history of technological advancement. 12,000 years, Jake mused. Humans went from first flight to space travel in about 60 years. Then from first space flight to interstellar travel in maybe 200 years. The Draxan officers stared at him. That is impossible, Zethkar said firmly. No species advances that quickly. Well, we had some help, Jake admitted. Wars tend to speed up technological development. Nothing motivates innovation like life-or-death competition. Wars? Krelthar asked. Oh, yeah, Ryan said cheerfully. Humans fight each other all the time. Well, not all the time anymore, but we used to. World wars, civil wars, regional conflicts really drove technological advancement. Helen looked up from the medical equipment she was studying. Both good and bad, obviously. War is terrible. But it did push us to develop better medicine, communication, transportation, materials science. Silver lining, I guess. Your species fights wars among yourselves? Vextal's voice was getting that squeaky quality again. Used to more than we do now, Jake said. We've gotten better at working together as we've matured, though we still have conflicts sometimes. But if you fight each other, Zethkar said slowly, how did you ever achieve planetary unity? Jake looked confused. Planetary unity? We don't have that. Earth has hundreds of different nations, thousands of different cultures, dozens of different languages. You are not a unified species? Krelthar asked in shock. Not really, Maria said. I mean, we cooperate on big projects like space exploration, but Earth is pretty diverse. Different governments, different belief systems, different ways of life. And they all agreed to send you into space? Vextal asked. Well, our particular mission was funded by the Earth Space Cooperative, Jake said. That's an alliance of about 40 nations that pool resources for exploration. But other countries have their own space programs too. Lisa nodded. Competition drives innovation. Multiple groups working on the same problems from different angles means faster progress. You compete with your own species for technological advancement? Zethkar was taking notes as fast as he could write. Sure, Ben said. Competition, cooperation, sometimes both at the same time. My brother works for a rival engineering company. We share family dinners and argue about design philosophy. Your family members work for competing organizations? Krelthar sounded confused. It's pretty normal. Helen said. My sister is a doctor for a competing hospital system. My cousin works for a different space agency. We share ideas sometimes, compete other times. It keeps everyone sharp. Tony was looking at the Draxan communication systems with obvious admiration. This is really impressive technology. How many different species contributed to its development? Species? Vextal looked puzzled. This is Draxan technology developed by Draxan engineers. Just one species? Tony sounded surprised. Humans usually collaborate with other humans who have different backgrounds and perspectives. Different cultures often approach problems differently. We are one culture, Zethkar said. The Draxan Empire is unified under one government, one belief system, one way of life. That sounds limiting, Maria said diplomatically. Don't you miss out on different ideas and approaches? We have order, Vextal said firmly. Stability, no conflict. But also no diversity of thought, Lisa pointed out. From a scientific standpoint, diversity usually leads to better solutions. Different perspectives, different approaches to problems. Ryan nodded. When I'm working on a tough engineering problem, I like to get input from people with different backgrounds. Artists see things differently than engineers. Doctors think about systems differently than mechanics. Diversity makes everything stronger. Diversity makes things chaotic, Krelthar said. How do you maintain order? Jake thought about it. We don't, really. Human society is pretty chaotic. But that chaos generates new ideas, new solutions, new possibilities. Order is stable, but stability can become stagnation. So you choose chaos over stability? Zethkar asked. We choose both, Helen said. Stable enough to function, chaotic enough to grow. It's a balance. A dangerous balance, Vexatal observed. Sure, Jake agreed. But dangerous often means interesting, and interesting usually means learning something new. Ben looked up from the technology he was studying. Speaking of learning, would you mind if I took some readings on this plasma containment system? I'd love to understand how it works. You want to study our military technology? Zethkar asked suspiciously. Just the engineering principles, Ben said. I'm not interested in building weapons. I want to understand the science. Knowledge for its own sake, you know? Knowledge for its own sake, Krelthar repeated. You seek understanding without immediate practical application? All the time, Lisa said happily. That's what science is about. You study things because they're interesting, not necessarily because they're useful. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from investigating things that seem completely impractical. Curiosity-driven research, Helen added. Humans are naturally curious. We poke at things just to see what happens. Even dangerous things? Vextal asked. Especially dangerous things, Ryan said with a grin. The more dangerous something is, the more interesting it usually is. Zethkar looked around at his officers, who all looked as overwhelmed as he felt. These humans were describing a species that thrived on chaos, diversity, competition, and danger. Everything that the Draxan Empire worked to eliminate, humans seemed to embrace as essential to their nature. Commander, Krelthar said quietly, I am beginning to understand why Dr. Wang defeated me so easily. Oh? Zethkar asked. She has spent her entire life adapting to an unpredictable, chaotic, dangerous world filled with competition and conflict. Combat was just another problem to solve, another challenge to adapt to. Krelthar looked at the humans with something approaching awe. We have been preparing for war against a species that treats warfare as a hobby. Word of the human encounter spread through galactic communication networks faster than anyone expected. Within 2 days, Commander Zethkar found himself hosting representatives from 3 of the galaxy's most powerful warrior species, all demanding to see these impossible humans for themselves. The first to arrive was Hive Queen Sarath of the Insectoid Collective, accompanied by her elite warrior drones. The insectoids were known throughout the galaxy for their perfect coordination and tactical precision. Behind her came General Prismdoc of the Crystalline Authority, whose people were famous for their logical approach to warfare and their ability to calculate battle outcomes with mathematical precision. These humans cannot be as described, General Prismdoc stated bluntly, his crystal body refracting light in sharp patterns. No species develops advanced combat capabilities while maintaining such chaotic social structure. Hive Queen Sarath's compound eyes glittered as she studied the human ship through the viewing ports. The mathematical probability of defeating a Draxan champion with basic training approaches 0. Commander Zethkar has either been deceived or is incompetent. I assure you, neither is the case, Zethkar said wearily. He had spent the last 2 days trying to write reports that his superiors would believe. The humans are unique. Then you will not mind if we conduct our own evaluation, the Hive Queen said. It wasn't really a question. When Captain Martinez and his crew were invited to participate in what the aliens called standard galactic warrior assessments, Jake had shrugged and agreed. Sure, sounds interesting. What kind of tests are we talking about? The first test was basic survival simulation. The aliens created a hostile environment scenario, a crashed ship on a barren planet with limited supplies and dangerous predators. Elite warriors from all 3 species had established the benchmark times for completing various survival objectives. The record for establishing a secure shelter is 4 hours and 17 minutes, General Prismdoc announced. Achieved by Crystalline Special Forces. Ryan Odell looked around the simulated crash site with obvious interest. 4 hours? What were they building, a mansion? 23 minutes later, Ryan had constructed a shelter using salvaged ship parts and local materials. It wasn't fancy, but it was weatherproof, defensible, and comfortable. How? Asked the Crystalline General, his light patterns flickering with confusion. Basic engineering, Ryan said cheerfully. You use what you have to solve the problem in front of you. This metal panel makes a good roof. Those rocks provide a foundation, and if you angle everything right, the wind actually helps hold it together. Ben Clark was examining the shelter with professional interest. Nice work with the drainage, very practical. Thanks, Ryan said. My dad taught me that when we used to go camping. Always plan for rain, he used to say. The next test was tactical, problem solving. The scenario involved rescuing hostages from a fortified position while avoiding numerous traps and defensive systems. The best time belonged to insectoid tactical drones who had completed the mission in 2 hours and 41 minutes using perfect coordination. Tony Kim and Maria Santos completed it in 37 minutes. Impossible, Hive Queen Sarath hissed. Show me the recordings. The recordings showed the 2 humans approaching the problem completely differently than any previous test subjects. Instead of trying to overcome the defenses, they found ways around them. Instead of fighting, through the obstacles, they turned the defensive systems against each other. Lateral thinking, Maria explained when asked. Most of these defenses are designed to stop direct attacks. But if you approach from an unexpected angle and use the environment creatively, There are usually easier solutions. Where did you learn such advanced tactical principles? Demanded General Prism Doc. Video games, mostly, Tony said with a grin. And puzzle solving. Humans love puzzles. We play them for fun. Games, the crystalline general repeated flatly. Sure, Maria said. Strategy games, puzzle games, escape rooms, mystery novels. We're always challenging ourselves to think differently about problems. The endurance test was designed to measure physical and mental resilience under extreme stress. The current record was held by Draxan warriors, who could maintain peak performance for 6 hours under simulated combat conditions. Dr. Lisa Wang lasted 14 hours, and she was still going strong when the aliens called off the test. I'm actually finding this quite relaxing, she said when they told her to stop. It's like a really intense workout combined with a logic puzzle. Very engaging. Relaxing? Krelthar asked weakly. He was monitoring the test and had watched Lisa maintain perfect focus and decision-making while dealing with challenges that would break most warriors. Well, it's challenging, Lisa admitted, but good challenge is energizing. It's like the difference between work stress and exercise stress. This is the good kind. The final test was adaptive problem-solving under completely unknown conditions. Test subjects were placed in scenarios that had no correct solution, forcing them to create new approaches on the spot. The best previous performance had been achieved by a crystalline tactical computer, which had developed working solutions to 67% of the scenarios. Jake Martinez solved 93% of them. How are you doing this? General Prism Doc demanded after watching Jake improvise solutions to problems that had stumped the galaxy's best strategic minds. I'm not really sure, Jake said honestly. I just try to understand what the problem is really asking, then look for creative ways to approach it. Most of the time, there's a solution hiding in the details that everyone else missed. Where did you learn such problem-solving techniques? Hive Queen Sarath asked. Jake thought about it. Life, I guess. Growing up human means dealing with unexpected problems all the time. You learn to adapt. Can you be more specific? Pressed General Prism Doc. Well, when I was 12, our town had a massive power outage during a blizzard, Jake said. The emergency systems failed, the backup generators wouldn't start, and people were starting to panic. My neighbors and I had to figure out how to keep everyone warm and fed for 3 days using whatever we could find. What did you do? Krelthar asked. We got creative, Jake said with a shrug. Used car batteries to power LED lights built. Fires in metal trash cans for heat. Melted snow for water, organized food sharing between families. Everyone contributed something different, knowledge, skills, resources. We turned a disaster into a community project. You were 12 years old, General Prism Doc said slowly. Yeah, but I wasn't doing it alone, Jake said. The whole neighborhood was working together. That's what humans do in emergencies. We figure it out as we go. Ben Clark looked up from where he was examining the test equipment. Speaking of figuring things out, this simulation technology is fascinating. Would you mind if I asked how the holographic projectors work? You are studying our technology again, observed Hive Queen Sarath. Just the interesting parts, Ben said cheerfully. The power management system for these holograms is really elegant, much more efficient than anything we've developed. And you believe you can understand it by casual observation? General Prism Doc asked skeptically. Maybe not completely, Ben admitted. But I can probably figure out the basic principles. Once you understand the principles, the details usually follow. Ryan nodded. Ben's really good at reverse engineering things. Last year he figured out how to fix our fusion reactor by studying pictures of a similar design. Took him maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks to understand fusion reactor technology? Krelthar asked faintly. Not the whole thing, Ben said modestly. Just the part that was broken. Though I did learn a lot about plasma containment in the process. Really interesting stuff. The alien representatives looked at each other with expressions that ranged from confusion to terror. These humans were casually demonstrating abilities that surpassed the galaxy's elite forces, and they treated it all as normal problem-solving. Commander Zethkar, Hive Queen Sarath said quietly, "We need to discuss the implications of this species immediately." "I agree," said General Prismdoc. "These results are unprecedented." "What's to discuss?" Jake asked cheerfully. "We passed your tests, right? Do we get certificates or something?" The emergency meeting aboard the Crystalline Authority flagship was unlike anything in galactic history. Representatives from 12 major species had gathered to discuss what they were calling the human situation. The holographic displays showed test results, behavioral analysis, and cultural data that had left every expert team speechless. "Show them the footage again," Hive Queen Sarath commanded, her voice tight with barely controlled anxiety. The central display lit up with recordings from Earth that the humans had willingly shared during their cultural exchange. The alien representatives watched in horrified fascination as images played out before them. The first clip showed humans engaged in something called rock climbing, scaling vertical cliff faces hundreds of feet high with nothing but thin ropes and metal spikes for protection. "They do this voluntarily?" asked Ambassador Quilseth of the Aquatic Federation, his gills fluttering with distress. "For recreation," confirmed General Prismdoc. "They call it a sport." The next video showed humans diving into the deep ocean, wearing only basic breathing equipment, swimming alongside creatures that could kill them instantly. "The predators in their oceans are massive," observed War Master Groktar of the Orcish clans. "Yet humans seek them out deliberately." "Gets worse," muttered Commander Zethkar. He had seen all this footage before, but it still made his scales itch with anxiety. The display switched to something called extreme sports. Humans throwing themselves off cliffs with fabric wings, riding explosive-powered vehicles at lethal speeds, surfing massive waves that could crush them like insects. "They're actively seeking danger," said Minister Vel Luna of the Ethereal Collective, her energy form flickering with distress. "This is beyond warrior behavior. This is suicidal." "No," said Dr. Threndak, the galaxy's leading xenopsychologist. "Suicidal behavior seeks death. These humans are seeking the experience of surviving near-death situations. They are thrill-seeking predators." The footage continued. Humans jumping out of aircraft for fun. Humans racing through frozen mountains on thin blades attached to their feet. Humans deliberately entering burning buildings to save strangers. "Wait," said Ambassador Quilseth. "Go back. What was that last one?" The display rewound to show human firefighters running into a blazing structure while everyone else was running away. "Emergency response," explained General Prismdoc. "Humans have an entire profession dedicated to voluntarily entering life-threatening situations to help others. They run toward danger to save people they don't even know?" War Master Groktar asked in disbelief. "Apparently it's considered heroic behavior in their culture," said Hive Queen Sarath. "They train for it and compete for these positions." Dr. Threndak was taking furious notes. "This suggests an entire social structure built around managing constant crisis situations. Their emergency response capabilities must be extraordinary. "Show them the children," Commander Zethkar said grimly. The display switched to footage of human children at play. The alien representatives watched in growing horror as small humans climbed trees, rode bicycles at high speeds, played contact sports, and engaged in activities that would kill young members of most galactic species. "The small ones are jumping from elevated platforms," Minister Vellaluna observed faintly. "Playground equipment," General Prism Doc explained. "They train their offspring for dangerous activities from an early age. Those climbing structures are higher than most adult safety limits for my species," said Ambassador Quillzeth. The footage showed human children swimming in natural bodies of water with no protective barriers, skiing down mountains, and engaging in mock combat games. "This is systematic conditioning," Dr. Threndak said with growing excitement. "They're creating warriors from birth but disguising it as play behavior." "It gets worse," Zethkar said. "Show them the sports footage." The display filled with images of human sporting events. Football players colliding at high speeds, hockey players fighting with clubs while moving on ice, boxers deliberately trying to knock each other unconscious. "They compete to see who can inflict the most damage?" asked War Master Groktar, and he sounded almost impressed. "For entertainment," confirmed General Prism Doc. "Millions of humans watch these competitions voluntarily. And the participants do this for fun?" Minister Vellaluna's energy form was pulsing with anxiety. "Some do it professionally," Hive Queen Sarath said. "They are paid to engage in ritualized combat for public entertainment." The next series of videos showed human medical procedures. The aliens watched in stunned silence as humans calmly underwent surgeries, set broken bones, and recovered from injuries that would be permanently disabling to most species. "Their pain tolerance is extraordinary," Dr. Threndak observed. "And their healing capabilities far exceed galactic norms." Dr. Turner mentioned that humans consider scars to be normal, Commander Zethkar added. "Visible proof of surviving injury." "They wear injury markers as status symbols?" Ambassador Quillzeth asked weakly. The footage continued with videos of human natural disasters, hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods. But instead of showing mass evacuation and species extinction, the videos showed humans rebuilding, adapting, and continuing to live in these dangerous areas. "They don't abandon territories after catastrophic events," observed War Master Groktar. "They rebuild in the same locations." Captain Santos mentioned that difficulties make humans stronger, General Prism Doc said. "They appear to use catastrophic events as learning experiences." Dr. Threndak looked up from his notes. "I've been analyzing the psychological profiles from our interactions with the human crew. Every single one of them has survived multiple life-threatening situations and considers this normal background experience." "Define normal," said Minister Velluna. "Dr. Wang has survived hurricanes, floods, and what she called a minor earthquake. Captain Martinez lived through a blizzard, emergency as a child, and considers it character building. Engineer Clark has combat experience and treats it as routine job training." "Combat experience is routine?" asked Hive Queen Sarath. "Apparently many humans serve in military organizations at some point in their lives," Dr. Threndak continued. "They treat warfare as a normal career option, not a specialized calling." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Ambassador Quillzeth spoke first, his voice barely audible. "Every human is potentially a combat veteran?" "Not every human," Commander Zethkar said. but enough that combat training is considered basic education. They teach their children to fight and their adults to survive disasters as routine preparation for normal life. War Master Groktar leaned forward, his tusks gleaming in the display light. What kind of world creates beings like this? A death world, Dr. Threndak said quietly. Earth is what xenobiologists classify as a Class 12 death world. Extreme weather, geological instability, dangerous predators, frequent natural disasters. Most species would consider it uninhabitable. And humans evolved there, Minister Vellaluna said faintly. More than evolved, Dr. Threndak corrected. They thrived. They conquered their entire planet despite conditions that would extinct most galactic species. Then they decided to explore space for entertainment. General Prismdoc's crystal body was cycling through colors that indicated deep calculation. Analyzing the data, I calculate that the average human possesses survival capabilities equivalent to our elite special forces, and they consider this normal civilian preparedness, which means their actual military forces, Hive Queen Sarath began, would be beyond our current understanding of warfare, General Prismdoc finished. The alien representatives sat in stunned silence, contemplating a species that treated galactic-level threats as recreational activities and considered survival training to be basic education. What do we do? Ambassador Quilseth asked finally. We make sure we never fight them, War Master Groktar said firmly. Any species that produces warriors like Dr. Wang as casual scientists is not one we want as enemies. Dr. Threndak looked up from his calculations. I recommend immediate diplomatic contact with Earth. If these 12 humans are representative, examples of their species, then humanity may be the most dangerous civilization in the galaxy. Dangerous? Asked Minister Vellaluna. To their enemies, Dr. Threndak clarified, but potentially the most valuable allies we could possibly find. The meeting room fell quiet again as they all considered the implications of first contact with a species that had turned survival itself into entertainment. The emergency session of the Galactic Confederation Council was the largest gathering of species representatives in over 3 centuries. The Great Hall buzzed with nervous energy as delegates from 47 different civilizations tried to process the reports they had received about humanity. Chancellor Prime Zephron of the Galactic Council called for order, his ancient voice carrying across the vast chamber. We are here to address the unprecedented situation regarding the newly discovered human species. Dr. Threndak, please present your findings. The xenopsychologist materialized as a hologram in the center of the chamber, his research data floating around him in glowing displays. Honored delegates, after extensive observation and testing, I must report that humanity represents a complete paradigm shift in our understanding of galactic civilization. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembled delegates. The humans evolved on what we classify as a Class 12 death world, Dr. Threndak continued. To survive on such a planet, they developed capabilities that exceed our most elite military units. However, they do not consider these capabilities to be extraordinary. To humans, they are simply normal life skills. Ambassador Quilseth raised a tentacle. Dr. Threndak, your report states that their scientists defeated our warriors in combat. How is this possible? Because humans do not separate their civilian and military populations the way we do, Dr. Threndak explained. Every human is trained for survival from childhood. They learn to fight, to endure hardship, to solve problems under extreme stress, and to recover from traumatic injury as part of basic education. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Chancellor Prime Zephron called for quiet. Furthermore, Dr. Threndak continued, humans actively seek out dangerous situations for entertainment. They have systematized risk-taking into recreational activities. What we consider survival challenges, they consider amusing diversions. War Master Groktar stood up, his massive frame intimidating even in the vast chamber. Are you saying their entire species consists of warriors? No, Dr. Threndak replied. I'm saying their entire species consists of survivors who are capable of becoming warriors instantly when needed. They are adaptation specialists who treat crisis as a learning opportunity. General Prismdoc's crystal form sparkled as he processed the data. The mathematical implications are staggering. If 12 random humans can outperform our elite units, what capabilities would their actual military forces possess? We may never know, Dr. Threndak said. The humans we've met are explorers and scientists. They assure us that their military personnel are significantly more capable. Hive Queen Sarath's compound eyes glittered with anxiety. What are you recommending, Doctor? Immediate full membership in the Galactic Confederation, Dr. Threndak said without hesitation, with protector status. The chamber exploded into chaos. Protector status had never been offered to a newly discovered species. It was reserved for civilizations that had proven themselves through centuries of service to galactic security. Chancellor, Prime Zephron restored order with difficulty. Dr. Threndak, you are recommending that we grant humanity the same status held by only 3 other species in galactic history. I am recommending that we recognize reality, Dr. Threndak said, firmly. Humanity possesses capabilities that surpass anything in our current defense forces. They are natural protectors who risk their lives to save others, even strangers. And most importantly, they are genuinely peaceful explorers who only fight when necessary. Minister Vel Luna's energy form pulsed with concern. What if they refuse our offer? Then we pray they remain friendly, Dr. Threndak said bluntly. Because if humanity ever decides to expand aggressively, no force in this galaxy could stop them. Meanwhile, aboard the Pioneer's Edge, Captain Jake Martinez was having a much more relaxed conversation with his crew about the same topic. So, they want to offer us membership in their space club? Ryan Odell asked, looking up from the alien technology he was still studying. Seems like it, Jake said. Though they keep using words like protector status and unprecedented honor. I get the feeling they're more nervous about us than we are about them. Dr. Lisa Wang looked up from her research notes with excitement. Think about the scientific opportunities. Access to 47 different species research databases, collaborative projects, cultural exchange programs. This could advance human knowledge by centuries. The engineering applications alone would be incredible, Ben Clark added. I've learned more about plasma physics in the last week than in my entire previous career. Maria Santos was studying the star charts the aliens had shared and the exploration possibilities, thousands of new star systems, hundreds of inhabited worlds. We could spend lifetimes just mapping it all. Tony Kim nodded enthusiastically. The communication challenges would be fascinating. 47 different species means dozens of completely unique approaches to language and information exchange. Plus, they seem to need help with security, Helen Turner observed. Their medical technology is advanced, but their emergency response capabilities are surprisingly limited. We could really make a difference. Jake looked around at his crew's excited faces. So we're all in favor of accepting their offer? Absolutely, said Lisa. Though I'm curious about why they seem so eager to have us as allies rather than just members. Maybe they figured out that humans are tougher than we look, Jake suggested. Ben laughed. Or maybe they watched those videos we shared and realized that our idea of a fun weekend would terrify most of their military forces. In the Confederation chamber, the vote was being called. Despite heated debate, the motion passed overwhelmingly. Humanity would be offered immediate full membership with protector status, an honor that typically took centuries to achieve. Chancellor Prime Zephron activated the communication link to the Pioneer's Edge. Captain Martinez, on behalf of the Galactic Confederation, we formally invite humanity to join our alliance as a protector species, with full rights and privileges. Jake's voice came through clearly, sounding pleased but unsurprised. That's very generous, Chancellor. We accept on behalf of Earth, though I should mention that we'll need to discuss this with our various governments when we get home. Various governments? Chancellor Prime Zephron asked with confusion. Oh, yeah, Jake said cheerfully. Earth has about 200 different nations. We'll need to get them all to agree to the membership terms. Shouldn't be too difficult, though. Most humans are pretty excited about meeting aliens. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They had just offered protector status to a species that wasn't even unified yet. Captain Martinez, Chancellor Prime Zephron said carefully, how long do you estimate this approval process will take? Maybe 6 months, Jake said thoughtfully. Could be faster if we get the major spacefaring nations to lead the discussions. Why? Is there a rush? Dr. Threndak leaned toward his communication panel. Captain, there are several border conflicts that could benefit from consultation with human tactical specialists. Border conflicts? Jake's voice perked up with interest. What kind of problems are we talking about? Pirate raids, territorial disputes, some aggressive expansion by hostile species, General Prism Doc explained. Sounds like you need better. Security protocols, Jake said practically. We could probably help with that. Lisa's great at analyzing tactical situations, and Ben could review your defensive systems. In the meantime, Lisa's voice added, could we get access to those research databases? I have about 1,000 questions about galactic biology. And I'd love to see how your manufacturing systems work, Ben added, always looking to learn new engineering techniques. Chancellor Prime Zephron looked around the chamber at the faces of his fellow delegates. They were offering humanity protector status, and the humans were treating it like a collaborative research opportunity. Dr. Wang, he said finally, what are you planning to do while we arrange formal membership procedures? Oh, we're heading home to file our reports and resupply, Lisa said happily. But Jake mentioned we might stop and check out some of those unexplored systems you marked on our star charts. Could be fun. Fun, Chancellor Prime Zephron repeated weakly. Sure, Jake's voice was cheerful. New places to explore, new things to discover. Plus, Lisa wants to collect more alien plant samples, and Ryan's excited about seeing different types of star formations. I'm also really looking forward to that hiking trip when we get back to Earth, Lisa added. There's this new trail in the Rockies I've been wanting to try. Supposed to be pretty challenging. The communication ended, leaving the Confederation chamber in stunned silence. They're going exploring for fun, Ambassador Quill Zeth said faintly. Then they're going home to climb mountains for recreation. War Master Groktar chuckled, a sound like grinding stone. I like these humans. They treat the galaxy like their personal adventure playground. That, said Dr. Threndak with satisfaction, is exactly why they're going to be perfect protectors for galactic civilization. As the Pioneer's Edge headed toward Earth with news that would change human history forever, the Galactic Confederation began the complex process of integrating a species that considered their greatest challenges to be entertaining warm-up exercises. The galaxy would never be the same.